Welcome back to Face the Nation. I'm Margaret Brennan. That was Ben Stiller playing the role of President Trump's personal attorney, Michael Cohen, from last night's Saturday Night Live. We turn now to our panel for some analysis of it all. Ed O'Keefe is a familiar face, as you know. He's been at this table before, but today we're welcoming him in a new role, CBS News political correspondent. So you're going to be seeing a lot more of him here. Margaret Talev is the senior White House correspondent for Bloomberg News and a CNN political analyst. Ben Domenech is the publisher of The Federalist. And Molly Ball is a national political correspondent for Time magazine, which had a cover this week that really said it all. If the SNL skit didn't, perhaps this does. And Molly, let's start off with that. We've also learned Michael Cohen is due in a Manhattan court tomorrow. Apparently now Stormy Daniels will also be appearing, according to her attorney. What do you make of all of this? I mean, it clearly irritated the president because he sat in the cabinet room at the beginning of a meeting on Syria and called this, an assault on our country.
It has clearly gotten to him in a way that few other things about this investigation have. And this morning tweeting about Comey, which also seems to be very much under his skin. But the Michael Cohen raid on Monday was a big surprise. It was a surprise to Cohen. It was a surprise to the White House. This is someone who obviously has a very long history with Trump, and so it's been very alarming to the president to see this happen. So, all of these things, and as referenced by our cover, are swirling around the president in this sort of constant cloud that envelops him, and it's hard to know even what to emphasize because there are so many things sort of hanging over his head. We really don't know how any of them are going to end.
Ben, this is a criminal investigation into Michael Cohen that was made clear in court filings, and a lot of it has to do with his business. Mm-hmm. Why is the president taking it personally? How should we understand that?
Because it is personal to the president. It's as the most personal thing that you can possibly deal with. I mean, the thing to understand about this context in terms of the Southern District of New York doing this raid and engaging in this behavior is that it does definitely strike to the core of what the president thinks about himself and his own personal activities prior to becoming president. The fact of the matter is that this, while this was started a year ago under the auspices of an investigation into Russian collusion, at the end of the day, this looks more like a convincing case for collusion with the National Enquirer, which is something that will always, I think, get to the personal core of a person. I think in terms of the president's attitude towards this, this actually could be a more significant development in terms of the investigation than we might have initially given it credit for. This actually could cut to significant decisions on the part of Michael Cohen, whether at then citizen Donald Trump's behest or not, decisions that could lead to questions about his potential bank fraud or campaign finance issues that could come up. How much that directly affects the president, we don't know that yet, and we'll have to learn that in the coming weeks.
Well, another thing that has personally affected, or at least provoked the president, is this book by James Comey. And the RNC has also taken up this cause of attacking him with these series of ads that play clips from Democrats and Republicans alike criticizing the former FBI director, and really not mincing words here. Ed, were you surprised at this kind of ad, or is this just the conversation's devolved into name calling at this point?
I don't think it should surprise anyone that they're working as hard as they can to discredit Comey. This is going to be a huge week for him, certainly for his bottom line. It's the book's #1. It's probably going to remain there for a little while. He launches an incredible national book tour and media tour tonight, and
got 6 tweets from the president about him today.
Right, which again just probably helps things for Comey. What's telling, though, you look at a new Washington Post ABC News poll out this morning. They asked about impressions of Comey. A plurality of people in that survey, 38%, have no opinion of him. So there actually is space for the RNC and the president to try to discredit him. While at the same time, there are plenty of Democrats out there, as you saw from Tim Kaine, who don't necessarily think totally favorably of him because of the role he played in the 2016 election. And let there be no doubt that there was a role played by him. So, you know, from a crass political perspective, it probably makes sense to do what you can to discredit him. But again, I got to believe all of this will help book sales.
But frankly, James Comey is only discrediting himself by some of the decisions he's made with this book. The fact is that there is not a significant news bombshell in this book. Everything that he could have told us news-wise has already been leaked, it's already been published, and the biggest headlines coming out of it actually have more to do with the petty ways that he refers to the president or that the president referred to him. It's much more sort of a high school Mean Girls-esque burn book than it is anything else.
And yet I think when you take a look and step back and look at the week in totality, until now we've been talking about whether or not the president would take some action to shake the special counsel's investigation. Mm-hmm. Is Mueller in trouble of being able to keep his job? Is Rod Rosenstein going to get fired? And with the release of Comey's book and publicity tour and this case against Michael Cohen that exists outside of Mr. Mueller's channel, what you see, I think, and what may have the president so upset is that even if he could force Mueller out, even if he were to pursue removing Rosenstein, there are these two completely separate channels, one through the justice system and the other through the court of public opinion, where no matter what, these questions and the pursuit of this investigation are going to continue. And I think that's part of what has him so rattled. And then the other part of it is, for most American presidents, they're either very old when they leave office or their political career was their career. And so when they're done being president, they go back to that legacy. For President Trump, he was a businessman and an image maker for so many years before that whether his presidency ends in 2020 or 4 years after that, he has that he has sought to preserve. It's a lot of money and a lot of connections and networks, and that is what Jim Comey is shaking right now.
Margaret, I want to also ask you, though, about the decision to strike in Syria. You heard the UN ambassador Nikki Haley say she didn't have time to worry about James Comey and what the president's thinking is on that because she's been so focused on this. Do we have a sense of what it was like inside this Situation Room? Because it was really the first time that Defense Secretary Mattis was there without his wingman, Rex Tillerson.
Yeah, that's a really good point. But what Mattis had this time was the UK and France to help temper the president's thinking on this. And I think that is what you saw in terms of the way this strike was measured. In the Middle East, a lot of people saying we thought it would be much worse. But actually what the president has done here, and part of the reason he may not have gone after equipment, Russian equipment, that sort of thing, is to do a very measured sort of strike that the UK, France, the international community, most of the UN could go along with. And so both in Theresa May and in Mr. Macron, Jim Mattis has found partners with whom to work to help the president make a case for moderation.
Okay, we have so much more to talk about, but we're going to quickly take a break and come back. Take a breath. We'll be right back.